I am not an engineer. I am a commerce grad from India. I think my survival is because I look around and look at the bright people around and learn from them. I feel the learnability aspect of an individual is very important. We look for it. We have a team which is doing stuff they could not have comprehended 1 year ago.
Different customers can point you in different directions. How do you decide, which are going to be your biggest bets?
That's obviously a billion-dollar question here. If we build everything that they say, the product can get very unwieldy.
Very true.
Yeah, right? So it has to have a core vision that it stays within. So first things, customer perspective is important, but you need to have your true north clear all the time so that you know where to draw a line. I want everybody to feel so confident using that with a product platform like Trmeric, I can use technology as well as some of the largest companies can.
Yeah.
So how do we build a product that the smallest of organizations, even a startup, can use and say, man, I can crack this. It's not such a rocket science anymore. The genesis of Trmeric was that we wanted to make it really easy for a company of any size to feel like they're a pro at putting technology to use for themselves.
Okay.
Right? In my previous roles, we would typically serve large enterprises.
Sure.
Who have the money, the wherewithal, the expertise to either hire or recruit all sorts of talent to kind of put technology to use for them. So this is a year of scale. We built out channels already. We're on the AWS marketplace. We've created a CIO advisory board. We've started partnering with boutique consulting companies who would become channel partners.
Sure.
So we're building channels, we're building a marketing presence, we're building a brand presence. We're doing some of those things so that the sales efforts are beyond me and Debotam and the core team. I work 16 hours a day.
But that you used to do earlier as well.
Maybe
that
not.
was like
I don't.
status quo, I would say.
No.
So I would challenge you on that.
Well, no. I think I still have a great team, but
Right.
things were set up. And over the last few years, Piyush, if I feel proud about one thing, I think I built the most amazing teams in the industry.
Please buckle your seatbelts because the scale of flight is taking off now.
Only one startup in 25 reaches the $1 million mark in ARR. Only 1 in 250 gets to the 10 million mark. And only 1 in 100,000 ever gets past the 50 million mark. Are you losing your sleep over scaling your startup? It's time for you to join the Scale Up Flight, where we take you on a fascinating journey every fortnight with a founder, an investor, an operator, and ecosystem builder. It's time for you to buckle your seatbelts, as this isn't for the faint of heart. Hello, welcome to another episode of the Scale Up Flight. I'm your host, Piyush Upadhyay. And I'm absolutely stoked to have with me here one of my ex-colleagues and senior business leaders and somebody who I respect a lot, Siddharth Bohra, founder and CEO of Trmeric. Siddharth, welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Thank you, Piyush. Thank you for having me here.
And the weather couldn't be any better. And especially for me, who's just come in from Jersey, I am so envious, Siddharth, of you guys and everybody else who's in the Bay Area. It's a luxury, to have this kind of a weather in January. Can't even comprehend it, really.
We're still complaining about the cold, but this must be spring for you, so
Absolutely.
good for you.
And you know what? When I was checking into my hotel yesterday, the lady at the reception was like, "It is so super cold." I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
We had like 5 degrees in the morning when I got to the airport. So anyway. So, Siddharth, let's dive into this straight away.
Sure.
I mean, you've been, on this phenomenal journey, and a journey that I think very few have taken in the past, right? For everybody tune in, I just want to let you know that Siddharth was the chief business officer at LTI, which now is LTI Mindtree, a multi-billion-dollar corporation of about 200,000 people, 100,000 people,
100,000.
100,000 people or thereabouts. He used to run a P&L comprising about 40,000 people or thereabouts. The entire digital business of LTI, correct me if I'm wrong, Siddharth.
That's right.
And he also spearheaded the product division of LTI, when LTI built its own products, data platform products, and so forth. So, Siddharth, from there, I'm pretty certain that you were bitten and literally bitten by the entrepreneurial bug, right? To start Turmeric. Like, talk to me a little bit about the inception, the genesis of Turmeric.
Yeah, I think you captured it right. I was smitten by an idea that had been kind of brewing or I was marinating on for quite some time. And there came a time where the concept of codifying what I'd learned over the years, and then also the prospect of unlearning what I'd learned over the years, quite contradictory, into something that could make a difference to hundreds of thousands of companies seemed like a venture I couldn't pass on. And when the question was in my head, would I regret making this jump or not doing it? I said I would regret not doing it. So that became a fairly, at some point I said, I've got to give it a shot, and I did. And it helped a great deal that my family was very supportive of the idea. Because at the end of the day, a lot of this boils down to personal
Absolutely.
commitments. And Swati, my wife, my son, Arth, and Os were very supportive of it and said, hey, listen, at this point, you've done a lot of interesting things in life. You've got nothing more to prove. Go follow your instinct, go follow what you want to do. And that there we are. And that's really what got me into turmeric.
That's phenomenal. And was this was this something that was brewing up in your mind for a long time, or did something happen in the business in terms of when LTI forayed into products, that's where you were more intimately involved in products, and that's when the idea dawned saying, hey, you know what, I could actually solve for this big problem and really make an impact. So talk to me a little bit about the process, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. Now I started a year and a half back, so I have to collect my memories, but I would say it was a bunch of factors that kind of came together.
Sure.
One, of course, I explained the whole idea of starting something was very intriguing. Then there was this idea that had been uh, bubbling in my mind for quite some time, and it related to essentially how do you make technology easier for everybody to get their arms around.
Okay.
And we'll talk more about it, but that really was the genesis of an idea. I've done a few different things in my life. I started out with selling Pepsi in the hinterlands of Maharashtra and India, rural
I
Maharashtra.
didn't know about this. So was this before
That
Infosys?
was my first job.
First job. Okay.
Yeah, that was my first job out of B school. And from there, I switched into actually, this is my second startup. I did a startup which was an e-commerce marketplace for handicrafts, like soft drinks and handicrafts don't connect.
Don't connect at all.
And then I did Infosys and then LTI Mindtree. And somewhere, this whole, I was constantly building something or the other all the time. And the other piece was I was always a challenger. My Pepsi territory was 5% share for my organization, and a startup is a startup. So I would say these collections, these experiences of the past, the experiences, of course, in Infosys and LTI Mindtree, and my general disposition towards starting, building, kind of all came together for me to take the step I did. And you realize you live in the Silicon Valley. This is the hotbed of innovation.
And it's
You
just
don't
so
give it a
magical.
shot here, then where do you? So, yeah, no logical answer. It's just a fact, multiple things kind of coming together at a certain point.
So it was always there in it, there in you, and like you said, just the ecosystem and everything was so conducive to making it happen. So that's wonderful. Now, I'm just curious, Siddharth. So in the early days, like how did you go about identifying what problem you were looking to solve, right? So before product market fit, in my view and in my assessment, there is problem market fit, right?
That's right.
Does the market even care about the problem you're looking to solve, right? Is it meaningful enough?
Yeah.
Is it impactful enough? So if you can walk me through that journey, right, of how did you go about identifying whether the problem was compelling enough, whether the industry cared for it, and then probably talk about the product market fit?
That's a great question. So maybe I'll have to go a little bit into what we do,
Sure, absolutely.
because then the context of how we approached it becomes more clearer. The genesis of Turmeric was that we wanted to make it really easy for a company of any size to feel like they're a pro at putting technology to use for themselves.
Okay.
Right? In my previous roles, we would typically serve large enterprises
Sure.
who have the money, the wherewithal, the expertise to either hire or recruit all sorts of talent to kind of put technology to use for them. And in those experiences, I also realized that the smaller organizations don't have that wherewithal. They
Absolutely.
struggle. They have aspirations with technology. They want to have the best use of AI and they want to be very secure and all of that, but it's not easy. So we wanted to create a business that makes it easy even for the small, mid-sized companies to kind of get on the right side of technology, put it to good use. So that was, but that's a very broad statement, right?
That's an end goal.
That's a
That's a
very,
vision.
very,
Absolutely.
and it's a holy grail problem, right?
Right.
Where do you even start?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? So it sounds great, but okay, where? So that was what I quit with, by the way.
So you had not fleshed it out when you were at LTI.
Not really.
That happened downstream.
That happened afterwards because, where was the time in LTI? I could see I had met a few smaller organizations and I had seen the quandary they were in with technology. And I said, there's something to do here. And perhaps we could take all that, what I've learned, and kind of build it into a product.
Sure.
So I started with that notion that I wanted to solve something like this and nothing more than that. And of course, I convinced Swati to let me and my family to say, hey, can I do that? And say, yeah, go ahead, go do that.
So once you had everybody's blessings, that's
So it's
when
very
you thought
important.
that,
Yeah, it's very important.
super important.
So I think the biggest step is to let go of a good job. It's very tough.
And you had a flourishing career. I mean, you were
I was
hitting it out of
blessed.
the park. You had the Midas touch, right? Anything you touched on.
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very good. I had a great team. I had a great role. I loved what I was doing. So letting go of that is very, at least for me, it was very tough.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you find yourself in this vacuum where, okay, I just had this notion. Now what do I do? So, and I thought I'll take a few weeks off in between. I just couldn't do that. The mind was racing with ideas. And I said, hey, listen, let me get on with things. So the first things first I did is I wanted to table this thought process to some prospects and say, hey, listen, what do you think? This is what I'm thinking. This is the problem. Tell me your side of the story now that I'm just all doing that. So I convinced a set of...
If I may interject, Siddharth, so it's very interesting you talk about this, that you went even before you had fleshed this thing out to get feedback from the market and to get a validation of sorts. Did you have an MVP at that point in time, or was it just an idea in your mind at a concept level? What was it at that stage?
No, I'll sound very stupid when I say that. No, I had nothing. I just had this idea and I knew there was something out there because I had lived that life, so to say, in some ways. I used to serve CIOs and
Right.
CTOs and CDOs, and that was the audience I wanted to serve. Of course, in a very different way. But no, I had nothing more. I could see the plight, I could see the problem, I could see the inefficiencies, and I knew there is a solution that had to be built.
That was brave.
So that was it.
That was super brave. I mean, kudos to your conviction.
Thanks, you're being very nice. That brave is a good way of explaining it. But yeah, that's how I approach things many
Right.
times. Yeah, so it was important to talk to the people for whom we were building.
Sure.
So we did convince a few of them to say, at least give us feedback. This is our hypothesis. We wrote our hypothesis down. I did.
And at that point in time, were you the lone warrior? Like, was this idea in the founder's mind and that's who you were? Or did you have a founding team of sorts? Like, did you have a bunch of people who were sold on the turmeric idea and who knew exactly what they were doing?
No, it was just me, and my
And
wife
Swati, yeah.
decided to help, and I convinced her to help us with a whole bunch of other things. Like we were raising some funds, and we'll talk about it a little later, and the finance aspects of it, setting up the company, all of that. But no, there was nobody else for the first 6 months because I had to be convinced myself that there was something in here.
Right.
for me to then, call people in and say join the gang is too premature in my mind because too early. Yeah, so some of those things we did. We got some of these customers together. We decided to build a prototype after taking that input. There's input, so we ran formal interviews and all of that. And in 3 months, we had built out a prototype,
Got it.
a wireframe prototype, which we then played back to them. We'd of course raised some amount of money, and we had to begin to kind of drill down into what exactly are we going to solve. And it was a mesmerizing experience because we started here. In 4 months, we were here.
So the product, just at the concept level, had completely changed by virtue
It
of all
had
the feedback.
your app. It had fundamentally changed.
Wow.
And I am so thankful that we ran that exercise.
Right.
It became from what I'd call a once in a while usage product that we had, or I had conceived it to be. We started with this idea to let me just be, a marketplace of tech services providers,
Sure.
curated tech service providers, so that my mid-market customers don't have to hunt around and figure out who can do different projects for them.
Got it.
They would feel confident that if I go to this company, they'll do a damn good job. So we started with just that notion that we'll build something like that. By the end of that pilot period, we were at a very different point. So that's really what the first few steps were: leaving a job, getting the family, of course, as part of this on your side, getting some customers to give us some of their precious time. These are
Right.
PIOs, the senior people, and then putting together a prototype that.
So based on what you've described, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that initially the idea was to build a business marketplace, right? Uh, More like Upwork for enterprise. Would that be an accurate statement to make, or something like that?
Yeah, I won't comment on Upwork. I would comment on what we're building.
Right.
So we were going to be B2B. We're not connecting enterprise customers to gig economy.
Got it.
You're connecting to enterprises on the other side. Service providers, small, very specialized, very good at what they do, vetted by us, because we realize that who you decide to partner with has consequential impact on the outcomes of the project. And for mid-sized companies, small companies, these are very consequential. You get a
Absolutely.
project wrong, you could be losing time, money, and maybe jobs.
So let me ask you this. I mean, everything that you've said and described is super powerful, and I can't think of any other platform. There's no other platform product that comes to mind immediately. So, and you're saying that the product has come a long way. In fact,
Yeah.
it's changed completely. Why did that happen? Because this in itself, what you're describing, sounds pretty compelling and powerful. There seems to be a place for this kind of product in today's market.
Yeah, so we built the marketplace, by
Okay.
the way.
Oh, you did.
Oh, yes.
So that was the network.
That's right. That's the network. So we did build that. So we just expanded the vision, and I'll explain how that came to be. So when we built the prototype of this marketplace, we said we will digitize this whole journey of from how you find a provider, discover a provider as we call it, to how you evaluate a provider,
Sure.
to how you onboard a provider, to how you then actually work with the provider, get the work done, and then eventually manage the provider. So this whole life cycle, what we call the provider customer engagement life cycle, we would say we have to digitize the whole thing, because the moment you leave something in between,
Right.
non-digitized, you're as strong as your weakest link. So when our customers saw this picture and when they saw this capability, they said, wow, we love this. But there was always a but at the end. And
Right.
the but was, hey, listen, this is great for the work we source from Turmeric, but we do several other projects that we'd like to have this kind of capability for.
Yep. Absolutely.
I want a digitized IT. I want to digitize everything I do, because right now, these different piece parts, from how I plan to how I mobilize resources to how I get things done, are done in manual ways. They're disconnected systems. There is data
Fragmented
sitting in
completely.
silos.
Yep.
There's a lot of inefficiency. So we'd like to do this for everything we do. which in the beginning sounded like, hey, but I'm only doing my provide. I can't sign up for what you're doing.
And it's so interesting that so many times customers literally handhold you and tell you, hey, you know what? I want you to build this for me,
That's
right?
right.
How many entrepreneurs and founders you talk to, they're like, I had never even imagined this. Like, but the customers told us that, we want this.
That's so basically the customer feedback was so consistently this, it was resoundingly that I want this for all that I do. That was a light bulb moment for me. And I said, hey, listen, maybe the opportunity is a little bigger. It is about almost creating an everyday operating system for IT organizations and tech organizations where they do their everyday processes, but in a systemic way, in a connected way, in an intelligent way, which is where AI comes in. So then that's when we pivoted beyond the marketplace, and marketplace became just one element.
Sure.
But now we've built this entire digital highway that is like no other. There's no product like this. And
And for everybody who's tuned in, so the way you describe it or, define it is it's an AI native platform that is built for IT and tech teams, right? And there are three different components. One is what you call as the GPS, right?
that's right.
The second is the co-pilot for AI tech teams.
That's right.
What's the name of the product, Siddharth?
Tango.
Tango. There you go. Two. Yeah, it takes two to
Two to
tango.
tango.
Yeah. And the third one is what we were talking about, which is the network.
Network.
Right.
That's right.
And that was the marketplace. That was the original idea.
That's right.
Right.
That's exactly right.
That is absolutely terrific. Would you also say that the product build, the Tango and the GPS has also been a result of all the advancements that have happened, right, in tech in the last 12 to 18 months, right? LLMs, AI agents, AI co-pilots. I'd never even heard of things like AI agents 15 months ago, right?
Sure.
So how can you use that and how can you leverage the might of technology? Has it also been a result of how things have changed in our immediate environment that have made, certain things happen? Would you say that?
You're absolutely right, Piyush. So, we feel very lucky that we were born only 18 months ago.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if we were born 5 years ago, we would have created a plumbing which is, we would have to replumb every process, every interaction for AI. We are, so to say, AI native. We built every process baking in what AI can do with that process. I keep saying, AI thrives in context.
Yeah.
So the GPS layer essentially is the process backbone, right? How does everything get done in a repeatable, good process?
Sure.
So GPS, let's take an example. Routinely, IT and tech organizations get input from businesses. So their business counterparts say, I want this feature or I want this application.
Right.
From taking that in to fleshing it out, to looking at, okay, what kind of resources would that need to get done, to then prioritizing it because you're getting dozens of these requirements, to then saying, okay, prioritization based on corporate goals. There's just a lot of things happening here.
Absolutely. Very true.
Right? So, and I just took one small process. There are dozens of such processes that play out in an IT setup or a tech setup. So we looked at AI and said, hey, how can this process be completely reimagined with AI? So all workflows on Turmeric are not, no workflow is a form. Every workflow is like a conversation you're having. Hey, Piyush, what do you really want to do? Okay, then, so you say, I want to build this dashboard. Then the AI agent will say, hey, what are you looking to achieve from this? And it'll give you a few prompts, keeping the context of your company in mind. So we just build the product in a very different way from conventional products because thanks to AI, you can do a lot of magic today. But we didn't want to lose the human element of it because we're always engaging and enabling a human being on the other side. So yeah, so that's how we.
And
put it together.
I'm so glad that Turmeric was formed at that point of inflection when technology has just come of age. I mean, the kind of things, the kind of advancements that have happened recently. So glad that it kind of worked out that way. I'm just intrigued to know a little bit more about the Copilot, right, product, which is what you call as Tango. Just a week ago, I was talking to another founder who's using AI agents and AI Copilot in the healthcare realm.
Right.
In reducing the time involved in benefits verification, prior authorizations, and things like that. And basically what it does is that In the current circumstances, we'd have to spend an inordinate amount of time waiting on the phone, going through the IVR queues.
Yeah.
And basically, the co-pilot would tell you, this is the time to call, right? And then it would get you as soon as it senses that there's a human on the other side that you can talk to. So basically, optimizing a lot on your time and things like that. I'd be very curious to know, Siddharth, that how is it that you guys are using, AI co-pilots? What is it that they do? If you can pick just one process, right, and explain it, that'll be wonderful.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a Uber picture and then I'll pick a process.
Sure.
So the way we built Turmeric is we took a very, I call it a human approach. What do I need when I need something,
Uh-huh.
right? Because at the end of the day, you get relevance when you are in the moment with the right input. So, and we realize that you need help nearly all the time,
Right.
right? Whether you are, if I had to take a technology example, whether you're building a new feature and thinking about should you build this feature or some other feature,
Yeah.
or where you are executing a bunch of projects and you say, hey, where is the risk? Where should I be worried about? Where am I going to be blindsided?
Yeah.
You would do with some help all the time instead of digging into different documents
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
systems. So we realized that help is always needed, whatever you're doing. So the way we build Tango is that in everything a user does, Tango is shadowing you,
Okay.
right? And it does that because we have Turmeric cuts across this technology value chain of planning, mobilizing resources, executing, monetizing the work you've done.
Got it.
So when the process cut across this whole life cycle, every time a process is used, data is collected.
Yeah.
And that data becomes knowledge for that user and for that enterprise. And so when a customer wants to use Tango, to your question, it has full context of the enterprise. It has full context of the user all the time.
Sure.
So now let's get into an example. So let's say Piyush says, hey, I really want to build AI into my recruitment process.
Yep.
Right. And I know somebody who can do this with me and all of that is great. You commission a project and you say, hey, listen, on the 1st of March, this AI methodology and this has to go live. I am under the gun. I need to get this done by, let's say, a month and a half. Now, what will happen is you'll have to figure out what is going on. What's the provider doing on the other
Absolutely.
side, right?
Yeah.
And typically, mostly you'll set up a daily call. You'll get some reports. That's how you'll figure out things are on track.
That's going to be the
all of
cadence.
it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So instead of that, or instead of just that, because let's say this daily report or this what is happening in the project, which is let's say captured in a project management system, Tango will pull all of this data for you because it's going into this knowledge fabric that I spoke about.
Right.
And you ask Tango the question, hey, Tango, what should I be worried about? And you'd say, hey, listen, this UI part that was going on, that epic, as they're calling it, this seems to be slow. Piyush, you may want to check with this company on what's going on the UI definition. Because if UI gets delayed, potentially everything else will get delayed.
So a classic example of AI with human in the loop.
That's right.
Okay.
So AI in this case is giving you insights that you would take a lot of time to figure out because Piyush has a lot of other things to do as well. You're not going to dig into a Jira board and all of those things to figure out what needs the attention. And what if the guys on the other side didn't tell you something's delayed?
Right. Makes
So I'm giving you a very basic example of service assurance,
Right.
where Tango will proactively come up and surface these risks for you because it's hooked into every possible source of data.
So,
It's
Siddharth,
unified.
based on what you've described, and this is super powerful, by the way, there are certain key components of this, right? So one is process discovery, and it could be any process,
Mhm.
right? Running on multiple applications. The other is process mining. How do you mine that process? And then how do you curate that knowledge and make it queryable and easily accessible? Is that a fair summary, or are there certain other parts that the AI is doing?
So the AI is doing 3 or 4 things.
Mm.
The AI firstly has become the process itself.
Okay.
So let's say the process of planning what technology initiatives you want to prioritize
Right.
is AI enabled AI is embedded into the process itself. So it's, as I said, everything is a conversation. In that conversation, the other side of the conversation is the tango, the informed tango agent, which is navigating you towards what I'll call the next best action.
Yeah.
Right. So the process is embedded with AI. So that's step number one. So the reimagination of processes, I call you.
Right.
As that process plays out, there is data being collected because everything is generating data. It's a telemetry. So the second thing that Tango does is gives you hook into that data and synthesizes that data for your consumption. You can ask a very complex question. You can ask a question, hey, listen, I have 50 projects going on. I want to reduce spend by 20%.
And it'll actually give you
And
certain
it'll give
scenarios.
you a very clearly thought through answer that these are the projects that are going on. These are the ones that seem to be delayed. They don't seem to be high priority. Maybe you want to consider putting them on hold. So it's synthesizing different types of information and giving you an answer that you may need a bunch of help to get.
So it's almost like a business advisor to the CIO.
That's exactly right.
That is.
That's the second thing it does.
Uh-huh.
And the third thing does, it takes action. You may say, hey, that project that we spoke about, which is delayed, hey, send an email to this provider and say, what is your plan to recoup the time that you lost on UI? And I'm giving you a very basic example.
Yeah.
It could also be told, hey, find additional resources from the bench who could be deployed on the UI tracks to pull this whole thing up. So the third thing it does, it takes actions. So it's first thing, it is the process, it is the insight because the synthesis layer, and it's the action layer. It does all of those three things.
That is wonderful. So I'm curious to know, Siddharth. I mean, I would love to, see the demo and feel and play around with it. But so there are customers who are using Turmeric as we talk.
You bet they are. They're
And
loving it.
each of these different functionalities, right? All of these different modules. So is it very modular in nature, or is it like one platform and you get access to all different functionalities? Or if I say that I only am interested in, say, the network bit, right? Can I only get that? How is it structured? How do you go to market?
You're right. It is modular.
Okay.
It is modular, and we've realized that um, different categories of customers seem to gravitate towards different. They like some features more than the others. So, for example, startups on the platform really love the network because in one place they're able to get all sorts of optionality for their company.
And I'm very intrigued, Siddharth. And I just want to double click on this a little bit before we move on to the other pieces. That in the context of an enterprise, there are so many different service providers.
That's right.
Are there certain ones that you've selected, focused on, like talent recruiting could be one, right? Development could be another. Like, or is it like a wide canvas in which you are impaneling like a whole host of vendors providing different capabilities? What's your view there, and what's your vision for the product there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you're talking about the network or the marketplace?
I'm talking about the
that
network
we built.
marketplace. Yes.
So we had a pretty clear view in terms of what is this combination of capabilities that enterprises typically need more and more of,
Right.
and where the demand is not well met, right? So we didn't want to go after, at least as we've started building the network, we didn't want to go after very commoditized kind of services.
Sure.
Right? Because there are dime a dozen options and all of that. So we picked very targeted areas where we wanted to offer optionality to our customers, security, AI, high quality digital engineering, product engineering skills. So those were some of the areas that we picked. And over the last year, of course, that network has grown. But we've always been very mindful of the fact that, firstly, we want to be very focused on certain areas or capability areas.
Right.
And secondly, we want really high quality companies.
Because I'm sure on the other side you have this fast evolving partner ecosystem of people who are actually on the Turmeric platform, on your marketplace, right?
That's right.
So are you creating a digital front end for those partners? Do they have a presence on Turmeric for your end customers to then see what are the wide array of
That's
capabilities?
a great question again. So yeah, they have we actually take a lot of effort in curating them, firstly. Secondly, building their profile on the platform. So The way it works is it's like Google search. So a customer on the platform would, again, every workflow is a conversation, as I said. This workflow around, I need to find a partner, is also a conversation.
Right.
Say, I'm looking for building out a generative AI pilot, is a conversation. Okay, these are my timelines, this is the money I have. Of course, we know what industry you're in. Lo and behold, Tango will surface up what options from our network would best suit your needs. And with one click, and all of this can happen in 5 minutes, with one click, you're able to see the detailed profile of that provider that we brought on board, including what are their customers saying about them, which is very, very rare.
Yeah.
So yes, you're right. So typically they have a storefront, as we call them. They are discovered. We don't spam them with these offers because that's not what customers want.
Right.
And this whole experience is completely digitized.
So what would it take to have a digital front end for Peckamere?
Well, it'll go through with your kind of presence and capabilities, we'll have you tomorrow.
Okay, but I'm really curious to ask you this because I think this is super powerful, right? That as an enterprise, you come on Turmeric, right, and then you just it's a conversation, right? You can just say that, hey, I'm looking for a certain vendor which has a capability in digital product engineering or whatever that is. It would match you based on your specifications and requirements to certain specific providers that you have.
That is exactly right.
And within the set of providers that you have in a certain category, in a certain space, is there another algorithm that ranks them based on, okay, you're more suited for ABC use cases, you're more suited for this? Do you do that as well?
What we do is we don't give ever more than 3 options.
Okay.
Because in our mind, too much options is a waste of time. We've already done the curation. So we give them 3 options, up to 3 options. But beyond that, they have to make a choice. And so we don't go into a pecking order of 1, 2, and 3. We've already done the filtering up to 3, sometimes even 2. Beyond that, we give them the ability the whole evaluation process is also digitized.
Right.
So you don't have to do emails and back and forth. You can set up your milestones on the platform. You can create your own evaluation criteria. You can engage the providers online. So all of that, they love doing it because now all of that is seamless in one place. And they have the traceability to why did they pick who they picked.
Right.
Because the next time they pick someone, they want to have learned from the previous evaluation.
And that's a very, very critical
Very
element.
important.
And at the back end, then you've got all of these integrations with Turmeric to these individual partners so that any leads that are coming in or any deal and work then flows into their CRM.
No, they have their own interface. They also have their own Turmeric interface.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so we're digitizing their business as well. So our partners have to be equally digital.
Right.
You can't have one side digitized, the other side manual.
Yes.
Because that experience breaks. So they're digitized as well on the other side.
So this is very, very powerful. I mean, my last question before we, talk about, your team and what else is in the hopper. In terms of product build, like what else is on the horizon? Is there something else you're thinking about, adding more features, functionalities, another product? What is it that you want to share there?
I think I have a feeling we have a roadmap that we can build for the next 2 years right now. What happens is when customers come on board, which they are, we're very excited about the fact that some really leading names have made Turmeric their operating system.
And it's industry agnostic, right? Because it's more a horizontal.
It's a functional,
exactly.
functional product. Yeah. So as customers come on board, they surface their needs. Hey, I'd like to have this as well. So we are right now bursting at the seams, honestly, with what we need to build more of. But if I had to abstract what the general direction is, I'd say that we want to build a product that is a consumer product, right? Which a consumer product is the easiest one to use. It's like a Facebook, a WhatsApp. Right. And my vision really is to not build a B2B type product.
So that's another major pivot then you're
It's not a pivot. It's just we have to constantly work on the experience to be as simple as possible.
Got it.
And we have, because we made some of these conversational things, that's the whole idea, is to make it so easy that Somebody tomorrow say, I can go build a tech product and I can come on the platform and get it done. I'll feel confident about it. So I'd say a lot of our emphasis will be on making it easier, easier, easier. It's just 1,000 small things that need to be done to make an absolutely outstanding industry defining product. So I'd say that's a big focus personally for me. Um, Clearly, AI is moving at a pace that who knows where it's going to be in a year. And we want to be very uh, aware of that change. And we want to be very smart about baking it into the product.
Right.
We don't want to overdo it. But on the other hand, we've stayed on the bleeding edge of innovation. We like to stay there as well. So I'd say there is a disproportionate emphasis on making sure that we are enabling our users as much as possible with AI. So I'd say that's the second piece. I think the third piece really is we have now built this whole highway, right? I keep saying it from planning to realization and everything in between. Um, that highway is pretty broad and pretty long already. Those that definition is good. We'll go deeper in each of these features and make them richer.
Right.
So I'd say that's really what the focus right now is.
The one thing that I do want to, talk further about is how do you decide what you're going to build, right? I mean, you've got 10 different things, 10 like different types of feedback coming in from different customers. Is it more the founder's intuition, right, in terms of what you think will have greater stickiness, right? Is it a function of uh, the target addressable market where you see greater potential in the market? Or third, what your customers are telling you? Because different customers can point you in different directions. How do you decide, which are going to be your biggest bets?
Yeah, that's obviously $1 billion question here, and there is no doubt that what customers say and want is very, very important. It is number one priority to make sure that, but there is always that translation layer that not just if we build everything that they say, the product can get very unwieldy,
Very true. Yeah.
right? So it has to have a core vision that it stays within. For example, we don't want to be a bunch of things, and we will always stay clear of, even though people may say, can you build this as well? And we can build it, but that's not who we want to be, right? So first things, yeah, customer perspective is important, but you need to have your true north clear all the time so that you know where to draw a line. The second piece that we think greatly about is what are customers not saying? Because sometimes you just have to watch for how are they using the product.
Right.
They may not even know what they need. Right? This product wasn't, of course, we took customer inputs in shaping the product, but the original idea and a set of ideas wasn't somebody was not coming to my door and saying, can you build this for me?
Right.
It was
They may
built.
be oblivious of the fact that they need something.
That is exactly right. So when customers first see it, they say, is this even possible? I've never seen something like this. One of our customers the other day says, if this is possible, after seeing the demo on my data, which of course it is, it's a dream come true.
Right.
And this is a very large company. So the part I'm saying is you have to be very aware of what are they not saying, because it's important to be almost understanding them so well that you can bring them capabilities that they didn't even realize they needed. And some of the best companies of the world do that, right? They create products that nobody really needed, but now we need them. So we spend equal time thinking about what nobody's asking, but maybe we should do. So I'd say we're constantly balancing
Constantly
this.
evolving. Yeah.
Uh, no easy answer, but that's how at least we're approaching it.
Fantastic. And it's been 18 months that this journey started. At this point in time, where's your focus? Like as a founder, are you more focused on the product side? Is it go to market? Uh, what is it that you're thinking about and that is keeping you awake, at night?
I'd say two things. There are two aspects that are very close to me. Okay, and I'll go back to this underdog challenger. I love the underdog. I love the challenge. I love the challenger winning, right? Who doesn't, right?
Absolutely.
I do.
Yeah. Right.
So I want those. I want everybody to feel so confident using that with a product like platform like Turmeric, I can use technology as well as some of the largest companies can.
Oh, yeah.
So how do we build a product that the smallest of organizations, even a startup, can use and say, man, I can crack this. It's not such a rocket science anymore.
On this show, we try and not use buzzwords, right? But it's almost like democratizing
Yeah,
IT and technology,
you're
right? When
absolutely
you
right.
don't have the wherewithal.
When you don't have the experience, you don't have the wherewithal, because we have figured that from our research and now usage of the product, 80 to 90% of these tech motions are just getting repeated. We can codify them,
Right.
right? Yeah, there's always that 10-15% where there's original idea, all of that. So that's one thing very close to us. How do we make a product that appeals and is relevant for hundreds and thousands of companies? Not just the biggest guys,
Yeah.
but the guys who nobody calls upon.
So how large is the team now at Turmeric, Siddharth?
Let me come to the second point
Sure,
and I'll
absolutely.
come
Yeah,
back to.
yeah, yeah.
And the second point is the point on experience.
Yeah.
We want this to be the best experience of using an enterprise product. So those two things I spend most of my time on, and I'm very, very. This is what I want to really solve for. So anyway, now coming to your question was about the team. We don't have a big team. We started, of course, Swati and me. Um, then we now have our entire engineering team we built out, which is in Bangalore. I have a co-founder, Debotam. He's an amazing partner in crime. And he came on board within a few months of me starting up. So he's based in Dallas. So we
And I
have,
don't know if you know, Debotam and I go back a long way. When Debotam joined Infosys, I used to lead business school campus recruiting. So yeah, I mean, there is a story there for sure.
so he is.
He's a great guy,
he-
absolutely.
He is a rock star. And I couldn't be more blessed to have a partner like him. And so yeah, and there's Roshan who leads our engineering, and he's built an incredible team which creates magic every day. I don't know how they do it. And we've been a little smart about using help beyond that as well. So Swati's been helping out on a few things, and I keep asking her to do a few more things. My son Arth has been I've sought his help on AI.
Oh, that's
He
wonderful.
is an AI researcher, goes to Berkeley. He's very good at it. So every now and then I tell him, yeah, spend some more time and do something for us. And yeah, so I've been a little smart about getting help from smart people.
Right.
Um, but yeah, our core team is about 12 people between engineering, between Devomi and here Swati. So
That's
it.
great. And I think now the conversation is shifting. It's about how you can do more with less, right? So I'm glad that you're tapping into all of the resources that you have in your extended network. I want to shift the focus to fundraising, Siddharth, something you alluded to earlier as well, that very early upstream in your journey, you were talking to people who were, interested in investing in the firm. So did you go down the venture capital route? Is it more a bunch of angel investors that you know of? Talk to me a little bit about the fundraising for Turmeric.
Yeah, sure. So when I left, and I told you the story how I left and where things were, uh, the plan was to bootstrap the company up until the point where we have a product and we kind of um, are able to give a personality to what we're building. But when I left it, a lot of people reached out and they were keen to know what I was doing, and I, I all that I could explain is what I explained to you.
Sure. Yeah.
And they said, "Hey, listen, we want to be part of the journey." And sometimes you feel you're just so blessed to people who trust you, and so within very little time, actually, we raised our pre-seed round.
That's wonderful. And this was after you had left LTI or before?
No, all after.
All after you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Okay. Yeah.
before that, nobody knew
Right,
I was going
right.
to do
Yeah, yeah.
anything like this. So of course they were all surprised because they thought things were great, and they were. But when I left, then that's really when they said, "Oh, what are you going to do? And are you going to take up another job?" And I said, "No, I'm not doing another job. I'm going to do a startup." And so that's really when. And first I said no. I let me build something. And then some of my friends counseled me and said, "Hey, listen, we know what we're doing. If we want to put some money in, we know what we're going to put and who are we putting behind." So eventually, we did raise a pre-seed round, and it was mostly professional network,
Sure.
and network of networks. And yeah, so I did get a couple of institutional offers. Um, I didn't feel that was the right time to take it.
Got it. Okay. And that's very interesting because somehow, when you look around, there seems to be this notion that when you starting up, right, the moment you raise capital, venture capital, that's when you've arrived. And now it's interesting because in the last 12 months, I'm meeting so many founders who are saying bootstrapping is the way to go.
Yeah,
Why would you dilute your equity, right?
yeah,
You get to pace your growth, right? And when it comes to making these difficult decisions between scaling and growth and profitability, you can actually make calls. So I'm glad that you're one of those founders who's again talking about taking it taking things as they come, right, and not rushing into raising venture capital. So that is very, very
yeah,
refreshing to hear.
yeah.
Uh, I'm curious to know just an extension of what we are talking about. So as you're looking to scale this now, product market fit is established. You're saying that some of the leading enterprises are using Turmeric. What are your plans? Like, how are you looking to build the team further? Are you thinking in terms of taking this product to, other, other verticals or other teams that haven't explored this? Talk to me a little bit about your scaling plans.
Yeah, I feel that we need to. This year is really about growth. We feel good about the product. We feel very good about the feedback we're getting. And by the way, there's good feedback and improvement
Sure.
feedback.
Yeah.
We watch very closely how the product is being used or sometimes not being used. Equally important. And we feel very that we really can go 8x, 10x, whatever x this year.
Right.
Now, in order for us to do that, we have to, on one hand, balance experience. We want really remarkable experience for our customers. And on the other hand, we need to fuel this growth, right? This doesn't happen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It needs funds, it needs efforts, and there's always a stretch in a startup.
So is there another round that is around the corner?
That,
Is
that,
that a
that,
possibility?
we wouldn't have said that a couple of months back, but now we feel very good. The kind of customers that are on the platform, the guys who are piloting the product, we feel we need to fuel this.
Okay.
And so we may look to raise around this year, because I think we have a strong engineering need. I told you about the roadmap.
Yeah.
We clearly are getting a lot of pull from the market, and it'll be good to fuel it, right?
Right.
We can keep it controlled, and that'll be okay. But why not make the most of the value that is being created? So yeah, this is a year of scale. We've built out channels already. We're on the AWS marketplace. We've created a CIO advisory board. We've started partnering with boutique consulting companies who would become channel partners.
Sure.
So we're building channels, we're building a marketing presence, we're building a brand presence. We're doing some of those things so that the sales efforts are beyond me and Devotam and the core team. And that's beginning to give us some dividends as well. But short answer to okay, I gave a lot of different details,
But it
but yeah,
makes total
scale is
sense. Yeah.
important for us this year.
That is wonderful.
Mm.
So I think you have, in a certain way, told us probably something you've not said on any other platform. There could be a
Yeah.
round of funding around
There
the corner.
could
So
be, yes.
that is great. Okay. Now that you're looking to expand the team and scale, what are a few things that you have in mind, Siddharth, in terms of attributes and skills and competencies and behaviors that you see in a prospective recruit as you look to expand the team?
Yeah, that's. I have my favorite answer on this one because I genuinely believe in these three attributes. First is learnability. I know it's spoken a lot, but look at me. I am not an engineer. I am a commerce grad from India, and I think my survival is because I look around and look at the bright people around and learn from them, and I say, so I feel the learnability aspect of of an individual is very important. We look for it. We have a team which is doing stuff that they could not have comprehended 1 year ago
Sure.
because they had this learning mindset.
Yep.
Right? Roshan, who's my lead of engineering, is building perhaps one of the most fantastic products out there, and not that he was
Yeah.
exactly doing that, and we're all doing that. So I'd say learnability and the humility around the fact that there is so much more to do, so much more to learn is a critical aspect. So what first thing we look for is that we don't look for perfect people, by the way. So the implication of this is I'm not looking for a very detailed JD. We're looking for attitudinally how do you come across.
Got it.
The second piece is that's very important to us is accountability. Uh, we want to be a no BS company.
Mhm.
Please own up, or you
Right.
don't need to be here, right? And there is no excuse. Somebody didn't do this, all of that. So taking accountability is so critical, anyways, especially in a fast growth startup. So that's very critical to us. And the third thing we look for is this guy a team player
Mhm.
or a me player? And you can figure those things out through a set of interviews.
Right.
I mean, you're a people person, so I always look for these three things. There's nothing fancy about it. But over the last few years, Piyush, if I feel proud about one thing,
Uh-huh.
I think I've built the most amazing teams in the industry, and I can say
And I
I
can't
will
agree
not
more.
say
Yeah.
anything more.
Yeah.
I have, and I am. So I really go after making sure that we build a good culture. We build this consistency of behavior, and this is so right. I That's worked for me. That's what we look for.
Right. And culture is a word that is used in a very broad sense, right? I mean, a lot of people that you would talk to would say things that are a given, right? That you need your teams and team members to trust each other, work in a collaborative way, be respectful. Uh, and it takes me back, when I used to live in Melbourne, Australia, I came across a company which I thought an incredible culture statement, right?
Mm.
They said, "We give a damn," right?
Okay.
And that to me was telling because I went for a couple of their events and I actually saw that they gave a damn to all of their stakeholders. And that came across in their interactions with customers,
Mm.
partners, everybody, right? I'm just curious to know, Siddharth, because in a startup, founder is the culture, right? It starts from there and it cascades down and percolates down. What does culture mean to you? What are the key tenets of the turmeric culture?
Yeah. So I'm going to borrow something that Debo says all the time, and I'm sure many others have said. And I think it kind of represents culture the best. It's what you do and how you behave when nobody's watching you.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really that's a great definition. It's not mine, but I shamelessly borrowed it.
Sure.
And if I had to say what our culture is like to these 3 points, um, I think people just don't have a concept of constraints in our organization, right? They just don't,
Right.
and we seem to end up do remarkable things, and customers look at it and say, "Oh God, how did you do this in a week?" We just And because I think people take accountability,
Right.
they are willing to learn, so they do remarkable things in remarkable time frames. So I'd say that the concept of constraints has been thrown out of the door, and yeah, I'm connecting it back to those three things. But so we think very unconstrained. We don't think small. We
Right.
never will. We know we're solving a holy grail problem. That's why it's fun. I don't want to be one more piecemeal tool. There
And
are
at,
plenty of
and
those.
at this point in time, Siddharth, you make a very, very interesting comment, and I just want to build on that further. How do you define winning for your team at this point in time? 18 months in your journey, what is winning?
Wow, that's a great question.
Like, is
Well,
it is it about more customers, putting numbers on the board, getting more revenue? Is it about how do you define that?
I'd say yes. I mean, we definitely like to have customers want a certain feature and use the, so there's absolutely winning does entail eventually the endorsement of the people for whom we build the product.
Sure.
I'd say winning also means that you're learning very fast, that you can do things now that 3 months ago you had not even read about.
Absolutely. Yep.
And because that gives incredible confidence to everyone that, hey, listen, we can get through any challenge. I know technology is moving so fast. We don't want to be left behind, and we will not be left behind. So I feel that learnability aspect, be it about building the product or how we go sell or how we position the company, we are learning at light speed, and I feel that's winning. That's really it.
And that brings me to my next question, something I've really wanted to ask you right today. What changes have you had to make? What are the things that you've had to unlearn and then learn as you've made this shift from being a senior executive in the industry, leading a P&L of 40,000 people and hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, to now founding this startup? What are the
You
top
ask
three
great
things?
questions, Piyush. Well, I don't want to be flippant about this, so let me, the first thing that comes to mind, I will not say.
And you know what? You get to be vulnerable. That's our code here.
Okay,
You got to be
will.
yourself. Don't think about
I know
it.
it
Nobody's
will be
judging
taken
you.
otherwise, but I made India trips in the most basic economy seat in the middle row, in the middle, whatever. So I said, use vulnerability. Okay, something that immediate. But anyway, that's not the biggest
I
point.
appreciate you being you.
But
Thank
yeah,
you.
it's yeah, maybe some humor.
Right.
Yeah, you have to mind money everywhere. You have to think about every dollar.
Yep.
It I know we raised money, but it feels like, I took a loan and I want this company to survive 100 years and to manage so many different things and still feel confident that we have a future. You didn't think about money like that in a large setup.
Right.
I'd say that is that. Um, I work 16 hours a day.
But that you used to do earlier as well. And that was like just
I just
status quo, I would say.
no.
So I would challenge you on that.
Well, no, I think I still have a great team, but
Right.
things were set up, and I have to be on any call that needs me or anything that needs me. My brain, of course, never stops.
So could I just restate that and say now you're on the front lines? You are the person, right?
That's right.
Okay. All right.
And yeah, and I'm, people, you have to get used to people not showing up on calls. You have to be your executive assistant. You have to be your secretary. You have to be your everything. Yeah, so small things. I don't know. It's not that I'm doing anything rocket science.
Right.
What has given me the right to not do this? I mean, I'm not such a whatever. I love doing it, but it's a different thing.
It's a
It
mindset.
humbles you.
Yeah.
It humbles you. You must have been whatever you were, man. You're this guy who's building a product, and yeah, convince the world that this makes sense.
But let me just take a pause and say big kudos to you and compliments to you for doing that, because very few have the courage to actually step out of their comfort zone and really do this, right? It requires a great deal of character. So the fact that you're the CEO of the firm and put very crudely the way they say it, I'm the CEO and I'm the janitor of the firm, right? And it takes a lot of character to do that. So
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough, and you have to acknowledge it's tough, and it's okay. I asked for it. I love it. I'm so glad I'm doing what I'm doing.
So frugality is one. Then you spoke about being on the front lines, right? What else, Siddharth?
I have to get into. I've never built a product like this. I mean, this is you're getting into the details of every small little thing that's happening on a screen.
Right.
I'm writing user stories. I'm writing product documents. I'm writing also. I mean, I'm doing stuff that I would have never imagined doing. Right. So it's also the content of the work that has fundamentally changed. When you're in a large setup, you have a senior role, you're managing for outcomes, you're managing leadership, you're doing some of those things. But here you're atom by atom, you're building this molecule.
So let me ask you a very difficult question, and I would not let you evade that. Learning in a large setup that you were part of, right? These large multi-billion dollar companies, learning per year there, vis-a-vis learning per year here. How do you compare that?
No comparison.
There you go.
There is no comparison.
Okay.
I don't want to undermine what people do. It is complex to run large businesses. There's no doubt about it. And one should never. I learned a heck of a lot in those organizations, and I'm so blessed to have been part of those. This is just different form of learning, but you are learning so fast. There
Yeah.
is no other way. You had nothing but an idea. For an idea to then go on paper, for that paper to turn into a prototype, for that prototype to turn into a product, for that product to be used by design customers, for that design customer product to be used by to be enhanced and become a general availability, for then, oh my god, you're
It is. It is
we
a lot.
call we call this a turmeric year is 3 months. So it's like the dog year equivalent. We call 3 years, 3 months is a year.
Totally get
So
it. Yeah.
the velocity at which you're learning is just uncomparable.
And how
So
many times has this occurred to you in the last 18 months when you really genuinely thought that, I don't think it's going to work out. I don't think it's happening. Have those thoughts like every entrepreneur I've spoken with, right, has self doubts at some point in time when you think, what if it doesn't work out? You see yourself running into n number of different challenges. Talk to me a little bit about that. How do you kind of keep yourself motivated? What is your thought process? And did you ever reach a stage in the last 18 months when you thought that, you know what, I'll have to quit, go back to what I was doing earlier?
you want an honest answer?
Very, very honest.
No, never felt like that.
Okay.
But I'm never happy. I'm never satisfied. I don't think we made enough progress. And and I am comfortable living both those worlds. I frankly, and I suspect I speak for most entrepreneurs. What do you have to go by? Conviction.
Right.
That's all. I frankly had only that for most of these years. And yes, I have the highest conviction in what we're doing, the highest conviction in the team we have, and the highest conviction in the progress we're making. So I've never had a moment of self doubt for those reasons. But am I dissatisfied? Extremely.
I think all entrepreneurs have this in common, right?
No,
Yeah.
I can criticize my business till cows come home, but yeah, I think we could have done so many things better. So yeah, and I can live with both equally comfortably and get a good night's sleep.
Just the constant itch and the nagging feeling, I could do this better. Oh, this could have been better. This is something we could do better. So I think that's a common trait.
Yeah, and I for people who worked with me, they know that it's just a edgy guy who's like constantly pestering the world, and yeah, that's who I am. It works for me. It works. I'm happy with that. And you have to be humble enough to know that, hey, listen, there's just so much to learn from people. There's so many bright people around this. Just look at the companies that are being born, the work that's being done. So you just look up to them and say, hey, there's so much for me to learn. And that's a very liberating thing to do. That yeah, you may be doing okayish, but yeah, there's so much more to do, so much more to learn, and I'm happy with that.
So how has your personal life changed, Siddharth? And what has this meant, this huge shift, right, meant for your family? I know that, your family is involved in this, right? And you've spoken about this, but how has life changed for all of you guys?
Wow, that's so there was a time where Swati would say, hey, listen, once kids go to college, which they both of them have, we'll roam the world and we'll do different things. And we've earned it.
Right.
We've done all that. That hasn't happened.
Oh,
So, yeah, some of those plans, and I don't say this lightly, you come to a certain point and you want to your trajectory, personal trajectory to shift a little bit.
right.
There aren't too many people at my age starting up, right? There are, of course, but this is not the general startup age. So, so you realize that some of those plans have to be diluted, not kept on hold, but diluted. And we were very conscious about the fact that we don't want to wreck our personal lives trying to do this startup, and it can happen that way. So we do our best to do our vacations. Maybe last year we could have done a little better, but we've done it. We do our best to spend time with each other, and But there has been choices that there are things that we didn't do
Right.
and we don't do, and we think about them a lot more. That listen, maybe a few months later, let's let this business build a little more.
Yep.
So it has
So it's another baby at home, right?
It is the third
When you
baby.
least expected it.
That's why. Then when you it's a good one. Is the third baby at home, and like it or not, it does become a conversation more
Right.
often than it should. But I think we've dealt with it okay so far.
Right. That is wonderful. That is.
I don't know what Swati will say, but it's okay.
Everybody's busy changing nappies, and you know what?
So,
So okay, that's perfect. I think one thing that I do want to say, Siddharth, is that you've shattered this myth that it's difficult to start up at a certain age or when you are at a certain juncture in your career, because if you have the motivation, the drive, and just the itch to start, you will start. I guess the one thing that I want to ask you is, a lot of people who are at a certain stage in their career who've been in the corporate life for 15 to 20 years, and you have the idea, you want to build something, but there's something that stops you because you're unsure. It's difficult to get out of the comfort zone. I mean, so many different thoughts, right?
Yeah.
What is your advice to people who are looking to pivot, right? Who are looking to move out of their stable jobs into entrepreneurship? When should they start? Why should they start? And why should they not start?
Maybe I'll answer it in two ways, Piyush. Firstly, if you have an idea or a set of ideas, even in an organizational setup, you can realize some of them. And I think I am a prime example. I have in Infosys, I'm in those 10 years, I played 5 different roles, each different. In LTI, who knew we'd build a product company, and we gave it a shot. Who'd build a cloud company and all of that stuff. So if there are ideas, you can, even in an organizational setup, stand up, volunteer and say, I want to do something like this. And many organizations, most organizations might give you that opportunity. I got one, and so I'd say, why not? Now, then let's flip outside. I can only speak from my experience.
Sure.
And as I said earlier, if you have the wherewithal, basic
hygiene things are taken care of.
basic, and we're not living a luxurious life by any stretch of imagination, then you have to realize that you only live once. I really think that's not just another whatever. You really live once, man. So take your shot, as they say.
Yep.
Take your shot. And once you take your shot, I realize that there's just so many people willing to help. I just think I'm so thankful to so many people.
You got to look around, you got to seek, and
You have to seek,
Yeah.
you have to ask. And yeah, not everybody will reach out and do whatever.
And which is fine, which is
okay.
Yeah.
But you just realize that just a lot of good people out there. And you learn from them, you get help from them, you just keep in touch. So once you get started, that process, that momentum of starting just keeps you going. So for me, the big step was to leave.
Right.
And once I did, and with no idea of how will this play out, I think it's been remarkable. It's miraculous. And I think that's all I'd say. Take that leap. And then you don't be shy. Reach out and say, hey, listen, I don't know this. Can you help me with this? Can you help me? People are really good people out there. I don't know. It's nothing more complicated than this for me.
That is absolutely wonderful, Siddharth. It was such a pleasure having you on the show and talking about your journey and sharing it with a lot of vulnerability, right? And not with no inhibition. So thank you so much for that. And my key takeaway for from this segment, and something that I would want to kind of reiterate for everybody, is that you got to take a shot, right? That is super important, because chances are you would have regrets if you've not tried something, if you've not taken a stab. And lastly, I would also want to say, take a shot with Trmeric, right? And transform your tech. That's what it is.
Oh, you absolutely must.
Siddharth, thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
A pleasure, Piyush. Thank you so much for having me.
If you're listening to us on Spotify, Amazon, or Apple, if you like the content and what we're talking about, please go and hit those 5 stars and leave us a review. That goes a long way. And if you're watching us on YouTube, then please like and subscribe. And that way, you can be absolutely assured that our content reaches you and we follow you along, our journey. And we hope to bring to you more founders, more ecosystem builders to talk about their scale-up pursuits.
Thank you for flying with the Scale Up Flight. We hope you'll join us again soon.